Welcome to the first of three Sunday videocasts called Spirited Sundays, during which Native American guests will discuss their community's vital issues and innovative solutions for a better post pandemic future. Today, we'll hear about leading edge yet traditional tribal food and housing projects. Next week, October 3rd, we'll hear about exciting pandemic safe youth programs, and on October 10th, about voting rights for some of our most isolated and marginalized citizens. You'll be able to find all the recordings on the Facebook page of our presenter, Staten Island Out Loud, a community reading and performance project. It offers these events and many others for the Big Read, a National Endowment for the Arts series produced in partnership with Arts Midwest. They are part of the NEA's nationwide celebration of An American Sunrise by United States Poet Laureate Joy Harjo, who is Muskogee Creek. My name is Stephanie Woodard, and during the presentations, I'll also read excerpts of my book, American Apartheid, The Native American Struggle for Self-Determination and Inclusion. In the book, I chronicle my 20-plus years of reporting on human rights issues and cultural continuity in Indigenous communities. I'm sure you're all aware that the pandemic has exposed huge systemic problems in our country. In the face of that, numerous tribes have taken forceful steps to keep their citizens safe: vaccinations, masking, distancing, quarantine, bans on non-essential travel, and so on. They have also taken this dangerous time to implement creative, life-affirming solutions. We see caring people putting their minds to the health and safety of all. These tribal solutions can't be duplicated precisely by other groups, but can be models for programs others can carry out to meet their own needs with their own resources. In a moment, we'll hear from Guy Reiter of the Menominee Indian Tribe of Wisconsin. Guy is director of the grassroots organization Menominee, which translates as Community Rebuilders, and supports Menominee well-being. Then we'll hear from Wizipan Little Elk, CEO of the Rosebud Economic Development Corporation at the Rosebud Sioux Tribe in South Dakota and a former Interior Department official. He will describe building a healthy local food system and finding independence from our overburdened national food system. Much of this work is based on what will become the largest native-owned buffalo herd in the United States. And now, briefly, to my book. I'm an investigative reporter, and this is how I came to report Indigenous stories. As I read, you'll see photographs from the Menominee's forest, today and in history, as well as tribal members gathering wild rice, gardening, and building what's called a tiny home, which Guy will explain. My focus on Indigenous subject matter started in the 1990s when I was an editor at Garden Design magazine. As part of our environmental coverage, I assigned a writer to report the story of a guitar owned by music star Rosanne Cash. The Gibson Guitar Company had made the instrument from sustainably logged wood from Menominee Tribal Enterprises, the Menominee tribe's timber products firm. Before asking the writer to trace the guitar back to its origins in the Menominee forest, I did the due diligence an editor engages in before assigning a story. I visited Cash at her New York City house and talked to representatives of Gibson and the tribal enterprise. I interviewed forest products engineers who toured the woodland for the Rainforest Alliance and certified its timber as sustainably logged. I learned unexpected things, which would set the pattern for my reporting in years to come. Officials of the tribal enterprise told me that the Menominees had logged their 230,000-acre forest intensively for 150 years, extracting 2.5 billion board feet of lumber, according to principles laid down by 19th century chiefs. During that time, they had removed the forest 3 times over. Yet it looked untouched, said the engineers who had visited it. They raved about its biodiversity and beauty. I saw striking satellite photographs in which the tribe's forest was a darker green than surrounding areas of Wisconsin. The Menominees had accomplished this by making harvesting decisions with all the forest's inhabitants in mind. if felling a tree in a certain direction would destroy a butterfly habitat or food for ruffed grouse, the forester looked for another option. The conservation group American Forests calls the Menominee woodland, quote, one of the most historically significant working forests in the world. Adrian Miller, president of Menominee Tribal Enterprises, said it has, quote, given life to this tribe for thousands of years. Mr. Miller calls it, quote, an emerald giant that is more than a forest, it is our spiritual home. The Menominees treat their forest like a garden. As a result, it is in radiant health. According to one forest products engineer I spoke to, the timber from it is so good, new grades have been created just for the Menominees. To top it all off, the timber products enterprise supports job creation that outstrips most small businesses its size. So, the tribe had improved its forest by using it aggressively. To me, sitting in an office building in New York City, this sounded like alchemy. At the time, the late 1990s, not interacting with nature was typically understood as the way to protect it. I went on to report and write stories in Indigenous communities from coast to coast. I started writing about agriculture and gardening, but found you cannot talk about that without talking about the land. And you cannot talk about the land without considering why the original people of this continent have so little left of what they once held. And you cannot reflect on that without looking at the human rights crisis this has wrought among people whose interaction with the natural world is the basis of every aspect of life, from the most mundane to the most rarefied. Along the way, I have never lost the feeling that with each reporting assignment, I'm a visitor to a world whose outlines I can only begin to sense. We're now on a video call with Guy Reiter from the Menominee Indian Tribe of Wisconsin. Guy is executive director of the grassroots organization called Menominee, which we learned earlier means community rebuilders. Guy, viewers just saw photos of you and others at Menominee building a tiny home. Can you tell us what they're for and how a person becomes a resident?
Yeah, po so, Anahkwet nitakam, Wapasha nitotam, Kashitna, and Skiwakian. Um, so, like Stephanie said, my English name is Guy Reiter. My real name is Anahkwet, and I reside here on the Menominee Indian Reservation. We wanted to be able to have a place that could be a safe place for people to go to. Some from like transitioning from maybe jails or from a treatment center or some other thing. But we also wanted to be able to offer them to some of our high school students who were I guess houselessness. They were sleeping on. They had somewhere to go, but it was usually sleeping on one of their friends' couches or whatnot. So we wanted to be able to help in any way we can.
And now I understand that there are support circles who help the resident of the tiny home. And I was wondering, uh, what is a support circle made of? What facets of what segments of the community might contribute members?
The idea behind the support circles is really just to let's say, for instance, if there is somebody that's referred from another department, we have signed MOUs with other departments that they would establish like a wraparound care with this person. The department is leading that, and then we would also work with the tenant to develop a support circle of their closest friends and family and people they know, and also people in the community to help to support them and the transitioning that they're working on.
So, tiny homes as a concept, they're newly popular in mainstream culture as sort of a way of encouraging people to live more simply in smaller places. Is the idea of a home with a small footprint unusual in Native tradition? Or
Yeah, it's very much part of tradition. We um, historically lived in wigwams, which are rather small places, and we wanted to bring that concept here, and we thought tiny homes would be a really good idea. Is that like we don't want your all your time to spend in a home, like we want you out doing things on the land and being a part of all the things that we're doing, whether it be environmental justice, energy sovereignty, whether it be working with our youth. Not that you have to like necessarily jump in and be a major contributor to it, but that there's opportunities there for you to do that. But also, like, we have an 80-acre farm here, and we definitely there's there's always something to do. We for sure want folks to connect with Mother Earth again, and feel that connection with her. And if you spend all your time indoors and you're not ever outside, it makes it a lot more difficult. And the other thing is that if we're dealing with populations that you know maybe are kicking drugs or alcohol or dealing with those types of things, it's really um, really good for them to spend time outdoors and connecting with nature and all those things. So that's kind of the idea, where I mean the tiny homes do have like Wi-Fi accessible, and they do have running water now, and they have heat, and they have cooling. They have modern conveniences, but we're trying to make it so that you'll be outside more than you will be inside.
Mhm. So you've mentioned the 80-acre farm, and you've alluded to other projects that you have at Minneconaugham. Could you tell us a little bit more about those?
You know, idea behind food sovereignty for us is that we wanted to like re reconnect with our food that we're consuming and take part in it. At one time, our people um, ate natural food, all the time, and we're natural people, so it only makes sense that we grow our own food and that we take part in that growth. Um, we historically would have planting ceremonies and harvest ceremonies, celebrating food and connecting with food. And all of our food at one time have stories and have connection. They're not just things, but they're actually you know being or like I said, they have history too. And in America nowadays, it's almost like people eat out of trauma, and people just don't even connect with their food. There's so many additives, preservatives, those types of things. Like we wanted to be able to have a farm where we could offer healthy alternatives to our community as well. Obesity, diabetes, all those things are a major um, factor up here on this reservation, and we wanted to see what we could do to offer healthy opportunities. And for us, chickens and bison and growing the many vegetables that we do, we're that designed for that. And just we used to do too is a pre-contact feast, once a month, where we would ask everybody to bring in food that was that we ate prior to being contacted by anybody. And we'd have some amazing dishes. We'd share recipes, and we would just talk and chit chat. But along that same lines, we always wanted to walk lightly on the earth, and we always wanted to not leave a big huge carbon imprint. And food sovereignty is important, but so is energy. And we wanted to build solar panels and have geothermal wells that work with the earth and green alternatives. And that's exactly what we're doing. Our whole farm operates off of a solar panel system that we put in pretty early on, and we're branching out that with other organizations and also homeowners. We want to make it so that every homeowner that wants solar panels can get solar panels and they don't have to pay out of their own pocket, and that we can help them in those areas. um, and working with our young people too, is a big thing. Our youth organization here, our youth work, is just trying to help teach our kids, values and morals, and support their growth, and give them safe places to go, and to be and do, and to remind them to slow down as well. I think is a big component of it. Is that we have to constantly remind ourselves that we're a part of this creation, and we're not like dominant over it, or that it's not something that's not a part of me, but it is me. Like this whole natural environment here that we live in is a part of who we are as indigenous people, and it all plays a role, and it all has stories, and it's all sacred, and it should be respected that way. And one of the other things that really uh, brought us together early on in the organization is an environmental justice. We led a fight against and we're still in this. It's been about 10 years, against the sulfide mine they're trying to put in on the Menominee River called the Back 40 mine. The Menominee River creates the natural border between Wisconsin and Michigan, and they call it the Menominee River is because of this Menominee tribe. That's where our oral history states that we came from as a people. So it's like the epicenter. It's almost like the Garden of Eden for Catholics. It's that for us, and we're very passionate about defending that, and we're also supporting other places that have that same connection to their land, and are trying to help push back against this extractive industries that are trying to come in. It's like something that we're very a part of, and we've moved into also being proactive and getting involved in rights of nature laws,
Mm.
and trying to demonstrate that this is an opportunity for native tribes and organizations to lead this almost different way of looking at law.
Going back to your many innovative and your innovative projects, which are really essentially proven ideas. You've implemented a lot of these things, they work. Do you imagine that other communities, including non native communities, could duplicate what you do?
They couldn't necessarily duplicate it because they're not us, but it's the concept of just slowing down, and being thoughtful and moving from a place of love and compassion rather than it is out of fear. A lot of times people don't understand, or don't realize that, like, this language we're speaking right now is a fear-based language. It sees whole problems and develops whole things around that problem. And our languages aren't like that. Our languages are about connection. Our language is about our role in this beautiful web of creation. So if you don't understand that, and that you don't realize that, like, this language we're speaking right now is a foreign language. It's not from this land. And the second thing is that it comes with, like, whole books and baggages, in your mind. It's almost like this judge is up there judging everything you do and say. Um, and we don't have that. We didn't have that. Um, so it's almost like relearning, and having the courage to stand on the earth and connect with her, and feel her, and to be able to stand in front of a forest, and be awestruck at the beauty and the diversity, and also recognizing that, look, we don't have to go very far to understand how to build a system or an organization or a civilization. um, we don't need to, like, rethink the whole utopian society, but we can look to nature. We can look to our mother, and she's constantly teaching us and showing us, how can it be that a forest has so many diverse species in it, but everybody thrives in there, and everything thrives, and there's no domination and things. And these animals have beautiful gifts to give if you pay attention. The way that these birds defend their homes, is pretty amazing to us, and we've used those ideas to strategize in our own, defense of our own homeland, and things like that. So I just think that it's about being in this moment, and not getting out of that rat race, and that very fearful language, to understand for what it is. It can be a tool, but it shouldn't be driving the ship.
Think for a lot of us, it's hard almost to conceive of the idea that you have been exactly there since time immemorial, that you didn't arrive there from somewhere else, that you arose there and have always lived there. And that's why you care and care for it and care for the rest of creation.
Absolutely. And the thing is that we've lived on this land. Our language is from this land. Our culture is from this land longer than anyone else. And the fact that, like, we don't need to be taught how to live here. We already know. As a matter of fact, we need people to be quiet and listen.
We are now heading for the Dakotas and a video call with Wizipan Little Elk at Rosebud. He will tell us about work there to restore local, safe, healthy, culturally appropriate food sources, including what will be the largest native owned buffalo herd in the country. Welcome, Wizipan. Can you translate the word Wolakota for us? You've called the Buffalo Project Wolakota Buffalo Range. And I was wondering what that meant, what that signified in reference to the buffalo themselves and their importance to your life and to any related projects the herd will support.
Absolutely, and thanks for taking the time to talk with us. Wula Kota, I think could have multiple meanings, but essentially what it means is to live the Lakota way of life, and to live as a Lakota comes with a lot of privilege and duties and responsibilities around treating others with dignity and respect, uh, duties and responsibilities to the planet, and to taking care of our mother, grandmother, Earth, and duties and responsibilities to other parts of creation. And in particular, Lakota people are Buffalo people. In our history, we believe that we come from a single common ancestor, and that in prehistory, some of us emerged as human, and some of us emerged from the earth as buffalo. But before that time, we were one people, and so to name this buffalo range Wulakota really uh, kind of calls out and signifies that we are uh, being true to our identity. And in order for us to be our most full and authentic selves as Lakota people, we also, must uh, bring Buffalo back, bring them to the forefront, and provide a place and a home where they can live and be their fullest selves as Buffalo, as Tatanka, as we call them. And they have taken care of us for millennia, and it's time for us to take care of them. And by renewing and strengthening this relationship between us as Lakota, us as humans, and Buffalo, we get to be our fullest, most authentic selves, and they get to be their fullest, most authentic selves. And so, a part of this, this idea of calling it Wola Kota, is really just saying, you know what, we're gonna be who we are, and this is how we do it.
In a sense, the arrival of the buffalo at Rosebud is a kind of homecoming, or you could even say a reunion.
It is, and I want to be very clear that this is not the first buffalo herd in Rosebud. In the 1980s, there was a big effort across Indian country to reintroduce buffalo, and many native nations started smaller buffalo herds. This is building on that previous effort, and to build on it in a way that is new, that represents kind of a new generation of leadership, and to take what leadership before us has done, and kind of take it to a new level. Wola Kota will be the largest Native American owned and managed bison herd in the world, and we think that that's very significant. Um, Part of the success for us is when another group, another tribe, does something even bigger and bolder, because this is part of a much larger movement around caretaking for the land, uh, revitalizing our culture, and doing our part to combat climate change. And so this homecoming is really an expansion. It's important to note that in the year 1800, there are around 60 million plus buffalo in North America, and buffalo experienced a genocide. By the year 1900, there were less than 1,000 buffalo in North America, and the impact of that wasn't well, I don't think that we fully understand what that impact was from a kind of environmental standpoint, and from a cultural standpoint. There was very explicit U.S. policy to exterminate buffalo as part of an overall process to move Native Americans onto reservations, and to break their economic systems, to break their lifeways and ability to feed, clothe, and house themselves. And so it was a tactic used by the U.S. government, and it was a policy. So one of the things that we kind of like to think about and call ourselves is, we're 80th generation buffalo and land stewards. We've been at this for a couple thousand years at least. At least that's what we can prove that from a scientific perspective, that we've been doing this in this area for at least 2,000 years. So this is we experienced a period of decline, and I think that this is one of those. The establishment of this herd is one of those watershed moments uh, for not just Indian country, but really all of the country, to show that we're now taking. This is not the first step towards revitalization, but this is a next meaningful step towards revitalization, and that we want to see these kinds of herds established elsewhere. I have a personal life goal of seeing 1 million new acres dedicated to buffalo, and I think that we can do that. Uh, so again, this is a small step, but on a much longer journey towards buffalo restoration and revitalization.
How many buffalo do you have now at Rosebud in this particular herd, and where did they come from?
We have around 180 buffalo on the ground right now. Um, we are in year two of a 5-year plan to build up to 1,500 buffalo on the ground. That is the carrying capacity of the 28,000 acres where they call home. Um, And from that, we will be able to sustainably harvest around 400 buffalo per year once we get to that 1,500 number. Um, the first buffalo that arrived were from the Department of Interior, from two national parks, Theodore Roosevelt Park um, and Badlands National Park, in South and North Dakota. And then we've received some buffalo from the American Prairie Reserve. And then we recently received several a number of animals from the Nature Conservancy. And then we're looking to purchase some animals from a private herd as well. Um, so we're pretty excited about the way that the government and kind of the nonprofit kind of groups have stepped up, and I think that this is a model for future growth and development around buffalo, around conservation, around developing public-private partnerships to really meet the challenges of the world. And we're very adamant that the two biggest challenges facing humanity are socioeconomic inequity and climate change, and we can't separate those two. Those two are inextricably tied to one another. You can't solve one without solving the other. And the Wolakota project is just one of those amazing projects that kind of tackles both of those issues head on. uh and you know Again, I just really think that this is an amazing opportunity to really bring public-private partnerships to Indian country, and when we're able to do that, we're able to be leaders for the rest of the world, to emulate these kinds of projects and to do something that has never been done before in history. So I just think it's amazing, and you know probably there's a good chance, because of where all the animals are coming from. We're probably going to have one of the most genetically diverse herds in the country when we get to full capacity, and one of the most healthy herds. If we were to go take a look at them right now, they're pretty they're well fed. They got lots of grass and plenty of water, and so they're pretty healthy right now. And we want to continue to make sure that they have a good home.
The Interior Department calls buffalo the continent's ecological engineers. And we know that the idea of hunting them to extinction in the 1800s in order to control the indigenous people who relied on them was a huge hit for the entire continent's ecology. It resulted in the Dust Bowl and nowadays climate change, all sorts of things unrolled from that. Uh, Can you give us some examples, like real concrete examples of ways the buffalo heal the land? What are they out there busy doing every day?
Yeah, absolutely. And you're right that buffalo are a keystone species in the North American prairie grassland ecosystem. It is really interesting. The first year I took the first class I took in college, the first class I signed up for and attended my freshman year at Yale, was a class called Population Growth, Climate Change, and Infectious Disease. This was, in 1999, and we were studying models that were really developed in the 1960s that predicted all of the challenges that we're facing now. And my first research paper was around buffalo, and so it's amazing to be able to come full circle with a lot of this. But buffalo as a keystone species are incredible stewards of the land. What we see when buffalo are reintroduced is the revitalization of original prairie grassland ecosystems. And so we're talking about increased biodiversity, both in plant and in animal life, as well as increased biodiversity in kind of microbial soil health as well. Um, when you increase biodiversity in a prairie ecosystem, you begin to see uh, deeper root systems from your grasses. Originally, there are plenty of stories about, and you can see in a few areas here and there across the country, that grassland root systems go down up to 6 feet or more into the ground. And so they're trapping all of that carbon down deep into the soil, aerating the soil, and creating opportunities for increase kind of microbial soil health. Uh, Part of how buffalo do that is their footprint is much smaller than a lot of animals. They're bigger, they're heavier, and but they have smaller hooves, and so they're less damaging to the ecosystem. At the same time, one of the things that they do is they imprint and kind of serve to plant seeds, and so when they step on the ground, they're kind of punching seeds into the soil where they can then be germinated. Another thing that buffalo do is what's called wallowing, and they will dig up the earth with their horns, and create places where they can wallow and really get dirt on their bodies, and when they do that, that helps take care of themselves to make sure that they keeping bugs and whatnot off of them. But it creates kind of holes in the ground that then fill up with water, so they're really able to even create their own ecosystems, to create their own areas where they can get water in the future. And then you kind of see these random places where wetlands develop, kind of out in the middle of nowhere. So now you have kind of wetland ecosystems, which of course create opportunities for increased plant and aquatic biodiversity, but then also create systems where we can create kind of climate feedback loops that create opportunities for more rainfall and precipitation.
At Rosebud, in terms of both economic and cultural development, are there other projects that the buffalo herd, as it grows, will support?
Just as buffalo serve as kind of a keystone for ecological systems, I think that buffalo also serve as kind of a keystone for socioeconomic systems. And we can't just address one kind of social issue without addressing all social issues. And what we've seen with the establishment of our herd is increased opportunities for from an economic standpoint, from a social welfare and health standpoint. um they've just been magic to see. And last year, in terms, and we didn't just start a buffalo herd. We also opened the only Lakota language immersion school on Rosebud, here where we're from. And the opportunity to, and we started with one class of kindergartners. The opportunity to get kindergartners, little kids, kind of out there, seeing buffalo, experiencing buffalo, being around them was you can't put a price on that. Some of the curriculum was aligned to buffalo, so the kids are doing kind of experience based outdoor education, project based learning, and it was really cool to see one of the projects where the kids uh, kind of started with a buffalo hunt, and did a whole project around how do you start buffalo hunt, all the way to how do you use the animal once it's harvested and everything in between. And to kind of see the ideas of these little 5 6 year olds, and what they came up with was amazing. So that part was magic. That was also done in coordination with our food sovereignty initiative. And one of their pillars is the use of traditional foods. So that we did a buffalo harvest that we were able to bring in people to teach how to harvest a buffalo, how you process the animal, parts of the animal, and really getting renewing our relationship in a very hands-on way. uh, from a larger economic perspective, we haven't fully explored all of the potential opportunities, but one of the opportunities we are looking to move forward with is the development of a meat processing facility. And we have a business plan, and we're moving forward slowly with that project. The herd will support that, so that we're able to create jobs, increased income, create a full value chain, and really lean into and develop value added agriculture. And I would say it's also really important that we're able to do this on our own terms without sacrificing our values. We are um, committed to treating buffalo as buffalo. And what that means is, we will not treat them as cattle. Our buffalo will never see a feedlot, and that when we harvest them, it has to be in the field, done according to cultural and spiritual protocols. And that if we have a processing facility, then we're able to process them and use every part of the animal, not waste anything. But that's going to create jobs. That's going to create income, and other opportunities. So again, it's the buffalo acting as a socio-economic keystone to grow and develop these larger systems that we need in order to address socioeconomic inequity and to just thrive as people.
A lot of what you're saying has to do with the importance of the local everywhere supporting the global.
Yeah, one of the things that we say is that we are committed to developing and implementing local solutions to global challenges, and that we need 10,000 more of these kinds of projects throughout the globe. It doesn't necessarily have to be Buffalo, but projects that embody this kind of thinking and these kinds of solutions.
All of this very positive, forward thinking, forward moving action is happening in the context of the pandemic.
Uh, the pandemic has been incredibly, uh, has impacted our community, tremendously in some very negative ways. Uh, we've lost, since the beginning of the pandemic to today, uh, close to 100 uh, Lakota language speakers. And we had about 550, and now we're close to 450. Uh, so we're losing our kind of cultural treasures at an incredible rate. Over the past year and a half, and a lot of that is due to COVID. Uh, we've experienced increases in price increases, shortages of food, etc. And so what it's done is uh, told us that our work is not only important, but that our work is urgent. And um, one of the things that I think is incredible and unique about all Indigenous people, but I was also very unique to Sicangu people, to our people, is this idea that we run towards the challenge, that we're going to meet the challenge head on. Um, the word Sicangu means burnt thigh, and we earned that name and that distinction when our band was caught in a prairie fire, and in order to get to safety, we had to run through the fire to get to the burned land on the other side. And we didn't it wasn't feasible for us to run, and so we had to run into the fire and through it to get to safety. And in doing so, a lot of people's legs were burnt, and they were burnt up to our thighs, and so that's how we got the name. So for us, we have that history, uh, that's in our DNA, that we run toward the challenge, we meet the challenge head on, and we don't back down. And that's kind of the approach that we're taking to the pandemic. um We knew our work was important. Now we know our work is urgent. We have no time to waste. We have to step up. We have to move forward if we're going to tackle these challenges. From a kind of safety standpoint, from tackling the pandemic, uh, from a socioeconomic perspective, and then also from a planetary climate perspective. What we're seeing now, with these increased extreme weather events throughout the country, and the impact, the loss of life. We need an all hands on deck approach. We need everyone moving in this direction. We need everyone acting. And I think that through projects like this and others that we have planned, we're an example. And I also think it's really important to note that uh, we're doing this in Todd County, South Dakota, which is on a per capita income basis, the third poorest county in the entire United States. So if we're able to do this in the third poorest county in the United States, there's nothing stopping the rest of the country from doing the same.
Thank you, Wizipan, Guy, and our viewers for joining us. This videocast will remain posted on Staten Island Out Loud's Facebook page. Please sign on to next week's videocast anytime after it's posted to the page at noon Eastern Time, Sunday, October 3rd. The second event in this series, it will look at exciting tribal children's programs that keep kids busy and happy while still following pandemic measures.